Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jovan and I'm a short-term rental operator in Houston, Texas, Washington, D.C., Alexandria, Virginia, and other places as well. So today's video will be about how to start an Airbnb in 2025 and beyond. And even though we are in the end of 2025, a lot of new changes have come into the Airbnb space. The first change we've seen is starting October 27th of 2025. Airbnb will now be switching their policy from a simple 3% host fee and 14 to 15% fee for guests. They're now changing that to 15.5% entirely for the host, and the guests will no longer have any guest service fees. So how does that affect you starting Airbnb? Well, for one, you now have to be really conscious of the prices you pay for either a home or for a rental before you start. Failure to plan on these things will definitely have the cost of you losing money month after month, and we're trying to avoid that. So Airbnb states that this is going to be an easier thing for everybody, host and guests included, but we know that's not the case. We understand that pretty much just means that our cost just goes from 3% to 15%. Now they suggest that all we have to do as hosts is just raise the prices by 15% and then it'll be the same. The problem with that thinking is that that's assuming that every single host will raise the price 15%, making it an even playing field. We know they're going to be hosts that are not going to do this, either because they don't even realize it happened, or they're going to say, okay, you know what, we'll just take the hit. For hosts that decide to do this, their prices will remain low, but if you decide to raise your price 15%, you're going to be higher than everyone else. And the most critical thing for guests is the price before anything else. Yes, they might like your design, they might love your amenities, but if they can't afford it, they're not going to book it. So what do? We're going to take an approach to raise the prices just a little bit. Let's do 7%, which is half of their fee roughly. And then instead of paying the 3% we're used to, we'll pay 7%. So that's a 4% increase for us as hosts, and now a 7% increase for guests. Now the thing is, a 7% increase for guests might not be noticed or might not be a concern compared to a 15% jump. So that's the process that we're going to take to handle the added fee with Airbnb, and definitely makes more sense than just eating the cost of the 15% by yourself. And now that you have this 7% fee, you're kind of more in line with the other platforms like VRBO, Booking.com, and things of that nature, where their fees have traditionally always been higher than 3%. So now that you have your prices increased by 7% on Airbnb, now your prices are pretty much even across the board as far as your net payout. I believe that you should be very aware of price changes, or policy changes rather, with Airbnb, as they come quick and you don't really have a choice. You either accept them or you don't host with them. And with Airbnb still being the biggest player in this space, they're still very important, especially if you only have one property and this is not a full-time gig for you. The next thing we're going to talk about is how are you going to acquire this property. So in the Airbnb space right now, there are pretty much two major ways to acquire properties. The first way is to do a traditional purchase of a home and then put it on Airbnb. This requires a down payment, typically of 20% if it's for investment purposes, and closing costs, which is about 3 to 5%. And then of course, you have to furnish the property once you have purchased it. This requires a large amount of capital to be able to begin, but typically your monthly mortgage costs will be lower than renting a property. And second thing is renting a property. We now call this rental arbitrage. This is pretty much where you go on Zillow or Redfin or any one of these services and you look for a property that you like. You message the landlord and you explain to him, hey, I like your property, I'm willing to pay the rent, and what I'm going to be doing is Airbnb your property. I'm going to have it on different platforms, VRBO, my own website, or whatever websites you plan on using. From there, if they give you permission, you then pay your 1 month's rent, your first month's rent, your security deposit, and you can move right in. You still have to pay furniture costs, but typically you have a lot less of a capital that you have to put up compared to buying a home. The risk here with this is that your lease is typically for 1 year, And even if the landlord agrees for the 1 year, after the 1 year, he might not want to do it again. And that puts you at risk because you've spent all the money on furniture, all the money on the security and first month's rent, and you might not even make your money back after that year. And on top of that, rent prices are typically higher than mortgage prices, so you're paying an elevated monthly price every month to hold the property. So from there, once you decide if you want to buy or rent, your next step is to look at the market. And what that means is you pretty much just go on Airbnb and you look for comparable properties. So if you're looking to purchase or rent a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house in Austin, Texas, you can go to Airbnb.com, search Austin, Texas, just like you're a traveler. And for the filters, you put minimum 3 bedrooms, minimum 2 bathrooms, and any other features that the potential house you're going to get into has, you put the same features on Airbnb search. So what you're going to do from there is you're going to look for all the properties in the neighborhood, and we're going to go as close as you can to where the actual property is that you plan on purchasing or renting. And you're going to look at the daily rates of each of those properties. And this is going to be not the fastest, but the most accurate way of determining how much money someone's making. So for example, if you see that there's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house a few blocks away and they want $100 a night, you click on their listing, you scroll through their pictures. Some of these guys are going to have really good pictures. Some of these guys are not. And pretty much to tell if someone is a good operator or not is just pretend you're a traveler. Look through their listings, look through that person that's charging $100, look for the one who's charging $200 and try to figure out why is this person charging double, even if they're in the same market. And as a traveler, you'll be able to tell immediately. Either the pictures will be really nice, they have a lot of amenities, there's going to be something very obvious to you of the price differences between these different properties. So once you get at least 3 properties that are similar to yours, you're going to write all their prices down. So this one might be 100, house 2 might be 150, house 3 might be $200. So what we'll do for each property is we'll go into the calendar and see how far they're booked. If they're charging $200 a day, but they have no bookings, then that means they're not really getting booked that often. But if you see someone who's charging $100 a day and the whole 30 days in advance is booked, then we know they're actually bringing in $100 a day. So you're going to take those 3 properties and find an average cost and an average days per month booked. Once you get that number, let's pretend it's $100 is the average and it's booked 20 days a month, then we know that property is bringing in around $2,000. We don't know their expenses. We don't know the utility costs, the mortgage. We don't know any of these things, but we can estimate it based on the property that you're looking at. So if you realize that $2,000 a month is not cutting it, then you know that the property that you want to invest in is not going to work. However, if you can estimate the bill after $2,000 a month gross, you can still net profit. Now you have to determine how much profit do you want to get per month. And that is really dependent on you. Sometimes there's some people out there that they want twice the amount of the mortgage or rent. And there are other people who are fine with just 50% more. So that part is all on you. So now you determine that this property actually makes sense. So you're going to proceed with the property and buy or either rent it. Now what? You can now look for an interior designer to design your property, or you can try tackling it yourself. Personally, I've always had every single one of my properties designed by me. I have no experience with interior design or any of that nature. However, you can go online on Pinterest, you can go on Google, and you can just research. You can even use your competitors on Airbnb and find designs that you like that can work. And don't only search for properties in your market. If you're in Austin, Texas, and you're going to use a property, you can search in Miami and see some ideas that would work in your property. Obviously, somewhere like Miami has a lot of themes based on Florida and the beach, but you can take bits and pieces of whatever looks good to you and try to furnish your own place. Remember, this is your first Airbnb property, so you're going to try to save as much money as you can yourself. So once you have your design, it's very important to have a spreadsheet listing all of your items, all of the prices, so that you can establish your budget and you know your final cost before you even purchase any of the items. I like to also include all of the costs associated with purchasing or acquiring a rental property. And this way you can see all your costs out front, and then you can now estimate your profits based on the numbers we talked about earlier, and we can determine how much money you plan on making every month. Using this, you can determine how long it'll take you to break even and then start actually producing a profit. That number varies. It can be 1 year, it could be 5 years. It really just depends on your deal. So now that you have your property furnished, the next step is taking pictures, which is very, very important. If you don't have an eye for photography, I do not recommend doing it yourself. You can hire a photographer. Even Airbnb has tools where they'll bring a photographer on for you and you don't even pay them up front. What they do is they take it out of the future earnings of your property. So this is a great way to not have to put any more upfront money and still get great pictures. Once your pictures are taken and edited and sent to you, you can now create your listing on Airbnb. I do recommend using Airbnb to start and kind of almost mastering that. A lot of people recommend jumping on all of the platforms at once, but it becomes a little overwhelming. So we got to stick to the basics. We're going to just go with the biggest company there is in the space, and that's Airbnb. So we'll list all our features and amenities and pictures all on Airbnb, and we'll start from there. Next, how do we price our Airbnb? Well, that should be pretty easy now because we already did the comparison of each property in the area to see what should we expect to break even. So now, if we knew we were trying to be at $100, we can put $100 for our base price. Now here's the advanced step. Instead of just pricing it on Airbnb and having the same price every day, we can use a tool called Price Labs, which can fluctuate your prices daily. This service charges based on the amount of properties, so if you only have one property, it's not too expensive. When you go into Price Labs and you set your price, you put your base price of $100 and you link your listing, and it'll determine based on supply and demand of your neighborhood what we're going to price each day of the week. So you'll see that some days are priced well above $100 and some days are priced well below $100. I believe this tool is worth it 100% because there are events in your city that you might not even know about. For instance, there might be an artist coming to your town that is going to be doing a concert, but you don't even know who the artist is. But that artist brought in a lot of demand for people that want to see them, which will increases the prices of your units. So now instead of $100 a night, it might have jumped to $150 a night. And for a 2-night stay, you just gained an extra $100. So things like this add up over time. And sometimes that software will price things higher than you can ever imagine. So once you're set up on a software like Price Labs and it's synced to your Airbnb, now we wait for the magical moment of getting a booking. If you're priced correctly and you have great amenities, great photos, you can expect to get booked within 24 to 36 hours. That is when everything is priced and set correctly. If you for some reason can't get booked within that time frame, I would say within 4 days, then you might want to consider tweaking something. The first thing to tweak is going to be price, because you have no reviews, no one knows who you are, you're a new host. People are going to be a little bit hesitant to work with you. So in order to entice people, you're going to have to lower your price lower than what you're used to. The way Airbnb works, once you get 3 reviews, you are now have an official rating on your profile. Now you can raise your prices to the prices that you intended to. As long as your ratings are 5 stars, you will now become trusted in the community and you will start to get more bookings. The way the algorithm works with Airbnb is the more bookings you get, the higher they put your listing on the front page, which will attract even more bookings, and then it becomes a cycle. So as long as you stay consistent, you have great customer service, you'll continue on that cycle and you'll have a great Airbnb journey. So that's all I have for this video, and please like and subscribe, and thank you. Have a good day.